button down the whole time and talk to you, or do I need to keep taking my finger off?
You can. I think that you can hold the talk button down the whole time. Where the recording's just started anyway, but if you like, you can always just keep your finger down on the button and then we'll see how that goes. Cool. So.
Right, I've got my finger there. Good.
All right, nice. So technology is working for us today. We found a way to get that working. So Nick Ritchie here. Welcome back, guys. On the line with Melanie White, and she's living over in the East Coast in Sydney, I believe, and she's a life health and wellness fitness coach. She's got a whole bunch of different areas of the wellness industry that she operates in. So Mel, maybe you just want to start by either deleting anything that I said or clarifying what it is that you do, and maybe how you came about to doing what you're doing now.
Sure, Nick, thanks. I started life as a biologist in Perth, actually, and it was after getting into a big company with lots of responsibility and staff that I got really burnt out. And I did a biology degree, and during that time I studied personal training. And for me, the hardest thing about being overworked and stressed was that everything in my life seemed to close in around me, and I became more and more withdrawn, and I got further and further away from the healthy habits that I knew I needed to feel good. So instead of cooking meals from scratch, I was eating out of jars, and I wasn't getting any downtime. So, in about 2007, I decided to move to the East Coast for a lifestyle change, and I realized what I really loved to do was to help people become better, and I didn't quite know what that would involve. But along the way, I studied nutrition and wellness coaching, and now it's changed my whole life, because during that training, I started applying those very principles to myself, and I learned about the power of language and words particularly, and about the things we say to yourself. So that's probably a bit about my background and where I've come from to be here today, Nick. And I guess that's what I love about what you do, is it's all about the language.
Fantastic, great. And I'm sure that's only a small segment of the story, but perhaps we might hear some more as the interview progresses. So, and what would you like to share with our members what it is that you're doing now, or what sort of things that you do with yourself now in a capacity in the industry?
Sure. What I'm doing at the moment is I teach wellness coaching for Wellness Coaching Australia, and that's a part-time job. I also run my own business, which is a food coaching program, and I also see people on a casual basis for wellness coaching. So, it sounds like quite a busy life, but busy is no longer in my vocabulary, because the most important thing for me is having every morning off until midday. I do my work in the afternoons. I eat well. I get great sleep. And I need to be a role model to my clients. So bringing balance into my life.
Yeah, bringing balance into your life. Was there anything else you were saying after that, or did the button jump off?
Sorry about that. Bringing balance into my own life so I can be a role model for my clients, really. Help them live their best life. Much as I'd imagine you're doing.
Yeah, sure thing, Mel. And I can tell by the tone of your voice that you're not wired like a lot of the health and fitness people in the industry that I speak to quite regularly. A lot of them are speaking a mile a minute, and their tone in their voice is quite it's like they're speaking from their chest rather than through their whole diaphragm, and it's almost like it's almost like I can just pick up a bit of pressure going on there. So you seem like you're like you said, you sleep well, you eat well, you treat yourself well, and it's I can certainly pick that up through the toning in your voice there and the way you're speaking, which is interesting and cool. So So how do you find at the moment, how do you find the general population? I guess this is a bit more of a generalization, but with people coming to you now, what are you finding are some of their biggest challenges? Like, what are you finding people are most, I guess, challenged with?
Well, you probably could relate to this. Most people find they don't have enough time, and they're under a lot of pressure. And I think those two factors are responsible for a lot of people's habits or lack of healthy habits, because they're choosing easy options or convenience, or just trying to get through the day, and perhaps looking for caffeine or sugar to get the energy they need to be the best they can be. And they're not sleeping well. So, but, I could say that most of it comes down to stress or time. Do you find that too, Nick?
Yeah, I definitely think that that our response to stressful situations in a high pressure cooker environment, which I think a lot of people find themselves in, whether it be the stay-at-home mom who's feeling pressured with that lifestyle of looking after the kids, or maybe they're very young kids, or and it's the whole whatever is going on there, or whether it's the woman or the man who's in the corporate office job 9 to 5 and they're getting pressured by their boss, or whether they're just someone who's hands-on, a construction worker, and by the end of the day they're tired and worn out, not only physically but maybe they've been mentally stressing about whatever it is that's going on. And so I think a lot of people, being able to deal with the stress that's going on, I think is quite challenging for a lot of people, but also um, as a result of what's going on as far as their ability to deal with these pressure cooker type situations, that the type of lifestyle that a lot of people are living in, and they also, as a side effect of that, is also affecting of course, their health and their actions as a result, whether it be their eating or their exercise habits. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. And so how about with your own personal health journey, as far as going from, like you said, biology and being in that sort of environment, and you mentioned that you were feeling stressed at the time, and there was all this it was a completely different lifestyle, the lifestyle you're living now. So what sort of things do you enjoy now that you didn't enjoy before you made this kind of drastic change in your lifestyle some years ago?
That's a good question, and I have to say it took me a long time to get here, because, earlier you mentioned hearing stress and tension in people's voices, and they talk at a million miles an hour. That was definitely me, and I remember going to business meetings, and I might ask a client or a colleague a question, and then just as they started answering, I'd cut them off and start asking the next thing, because I just wanted to get through that conversation. And I realized that I could hear myself doing it, and I thought, oh man, I'm on the edge of some terrible sort of breakdown here. This is not normal behavior. I'm so burnt out and anxious that it's affecting my personal relationships, which has always been something I'm reasonably good at, is building rapport with people. So, to make the move, it took a long time, not just to make the move, but also to get into this current headspace. Because I think, when I was working 12 to 14-hour days and with a lot of responsibility, I didn't know how to switch off from that. And so when I moved here, I found myself working 12-hour days, digging up the lawn with a mattock or painting the whole house, And I think I realized that a lot of this stuff was my own inner voice telling me what I should be doing, or the standards that I should be living up to, or any of those other things, and the fears and concerns that I had about being able to make it and be successful in a place where I'd moved not knowing anybody, So it took me a long time to get to where I am now, which is things I enjoy now. I get up in the morning and I go for a surf. I allow myself to sit at home all weekend with the computer and the phone switched off. in my garden, growing vegetables, having a cup of tea, doing some study, having a coffee with a friend. Simple stuff that I would never used to allow myself time to do. And my life is so much better for the fact that I've managed to find time to exercise, eat well, cook. I love to cook. That's the kind of stuff I'm doing now, and it feels fantastic.
Wow, that's really cool. That's really cool, and I can tell that that the transition has served you very well, and so tell me about. You mentioned that there were some fears about making that change, about going from the high pressure environment and having your life not the way that you wanted it to be. Like, how did you kind of get to a point where you realized that you weren't living the type of life that you wanted to live? Like, what was it was it like a really defining factor, or was it a gradual progression for you?
I think at first I didn't really notice, and the thing is that when you're busy with something, you're distracting yourself from who you really are and your own truth and your own authenticity. And one day I realised that I was just as exhausted as I had been in Perth because I couldn't face what was in my head. I couldn't look at who I was. I didn't know who I was because I was so used to serving other people and being busy doing that. Thing was thinking, who am I? What am I here for? I had that realisation one day that I was distracting myself. And, we all distract ourselves from pain and fear with alcohol. We medicate ourselves with food because somehow it's not okay to feel sad. It's not okay to be angry or frustrated or to be fearful. I didn't have any coping mechanisms for those things. I'd just been pushing them to the back by being busy. So being busy served me in that way. And then I realised that I needed to, if I kept going that way, I was really going to be unhappy. And I looked at my life and thought, there are people around me with smiles on their faces, feeling energised, and I'm lacking those things. So my fears were about facing up to who I was. Probably a bit of ego in there because I was a hero in Perth and I came to be a zero in a place where no one knew me and I had no work or business and I had to start from scratch. So there was a lot of fears about, could I do this? Am I good enough? Do I need to be perfect? All that stuff that a lot of us have going on in our heads, but not really tapping into who I was or what I had to offer the world. So it was about me finding my authenticity, I suppose, and that's been my biggest journey in the past 7 years.
It's fantastic, and I think a lot of people listening to this call can really relate to being so busy with quote life that it's almost like our own preservation of the self becomes something that gets put on the back burner. It's like, all right, what are all the things in life that are going on right now that can distract me from what's really most important, which is me or the I, right? So,
yeah, and I think particularly for women, we so, and even more so mothers, we're nurturers. We look after other people and put them first. And in a modern society where women work and look after kids and all those other things and are expected to look and feel good, there are also those societal expectations. And we can push ourselves too far and expect too much of ourselves without being really compassionate and kind enough to ourselves, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Being kind and being able to really, I guess, give back to that person who's most important, so they can really, if she's giving back to herself in the way that would be most serving for her, then she's able to give more to others. The result of that.
You've hit the nail on the head. Yeah, exactly, Nick. That's exactly it.
Wow. So, and then you mentioned that so you had this realization that really your busy quote life was a distraction from what was most important, taking care of yourself living the type of life that you really wanted, and feeling the way that you really wanted to feel. And that, there's a lot of people that are, like you say, medicating themselves with food, that coping strategies for the stress, for the busy lifestyle, aren't serving them, and that just focusing on one busy thing to the next, which reminds me a lot of my wife when I first met her 3 years ago. Um, and yeah, and so I think a lot of people can relate to what you're saying there. And you mentioned that, so that was kind of like your realization day of being able to almost have a bird's eye view, and being able to grasp what was really going on in your life for maybe the first time in a while. And the
Yeah.
realization that awareness, as I always say, um, the only way that we can change things is when we have a conscious or unconscious awareness. So without awareness, we can't really do anything because we're not aware of what needs to change. So you had this kind of big awareness that happened, and then it was decision time. So how did you make the decision going back to that time? How did you make the decision from realization that your life wasn't the way that you wanted it to be, to making the decision to move to Sydney, or to the East Coast, to a place where, where you say you didn't have anything in particular set up. So how did you make that decision to make that jump?
Well, actually, it was when I started training to become a coach, which I thought would be an add-on to everything else I was doing, but it ended up being the start of a journey. And one of the first things I learned is that change comes when you have a sense that something isn't right. And that was the aha moment that you're talking about. It's that I realized that I'd moved here and I was still flogging myself. Something's not right there. And it was through my coach training that I learned about reflection and positive self-talk. And I think I could have gone through this transition much easier if I'd have had a coach working with me, someone to talk to me, someone to listen to what I had to say and to reflect back. That would have made a huge difference to my state of mind and my progress with change. As it was, learning to be a coach, I kind of ended up coaching myself, and having a bit of practice with people made me realize that I wasn't alone. That's another thing. People feel so isolated. They think, this is my problem. Nobody else feels like me. And you get disconnected from people in a way when you're anxious. You pull away from society and social occasions because you're so stressed you can't deal with that. But then being able to connect to people and not feel so alone, and to reach out and to find someone to help you, I think is a great thing. And as I said, for me, that was a bit of learning to coach myself, and then starting to meet people who could help me that way.
So the decision was really coming from so you'd already decided to move. So you'd already made some decisions to move your livelihood, so to speak. And when you got to this when you got to the new location, you're studying to be a coach, and you're studying in the wellness area, and then you started making decisions there that things needed to change. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I should have been a bit clearer about that. I kind of, when I was learning to coach myself, I realised that I could take baby steps myself in making some changes in my life. And so I just started very slowly. I decided that I would start with exercise. And for me, I wasn't a good exerciser actually, but by starting to teach 2 personal training group sessions a week plus a belly dance class, I'd get my exercise in. But the bigger issue there was needing to set some boundaries and to allow time for myself. That was an overarching thing. But yeah, to get me started, I was doing things like scheduling classes and taking time to prepare meals. It was just a decision that I'd start with exercise because that was easy for me as a personal trainer, something I could build into my schedule, my busy schedule.
Yeah, for sure. So you started taking some time for yourself and making those great changes. And they started with making the decision to do some exercise, and then to follow on from that. So it was, as you say, baby steps, one foot in front of the other. So you didn't all of a sudden transform your life overnight. You weren't like all of a sudden hanging out in your garden, growing your vegetables and sleeping in the mornings. So it was a real gradual process for you.
Yeah, and I started with exercise because I realised that it was one of the most important things for me. Not something that I like the most, but easy for me to do. And if I exercise well, then a whole bunch of other areas in my life fall into place. So I made the decision that I would start with exercise and I would commit to 3 days a week, plus anything else I could get. And that sat really well with me, and I was able to do that. And that started my exercise journey.
Excellent. And after you started exercising, did you have any doubts or any fears that came up for you at the time?
Well, I kind of did, because I was running the classes, so I needed to be fitter than everyone else, I thought, or more capable. And then I wondered how long I could sustain that. So I had that kind of dialogue going on. But I also wondered if I was doing the exercise for the right reasons. So that was something I've worked on over the last 2 years, more focused. Is that, why am I doing this? It's not just so other people can come to my class and so I can tick a box. What's really important to me has been part of the inner dialogue there.
Yeah, inner dialogue. Why? Why do people do what they do? So that's excellent retrospection there, or introspection, and having a really asking yourself, why am I doing this? What is driving me in order to take these actions? A lot of people, I find, one area in particular I notice here in Perth, there's a lot of marketing for fitness competitions, and what I'm referring to as bikini competitions or figure or bodybuilding, and these where the girls get on stage and they've been eating and exercising a certain way for a certain time period, and it's very well promoted there. I know one of the promoters who promotes these shows here in Perth, and it's very, very well promoted. And these a lot of girls will see the girls on the stage in their heels and their bikini and think, oh wow, and they start, they're like, I'm going to do that. But what I think a lot of because I do speak with quite a few of these girls who are competing, and when I ask them what's their reason for doing that, what's their reason for setting that goal, why are they doing it, it starts with like a pretty instant response, pretty surface level response. But when you dig down and you find out what the real reasons are for doing that, it's usually completely different than what they actually thought originally they were doing that for. So perhaps maybe you had a bit of when you started the exercise classes, and then what you're referring to there is you ask yourself, well, why am I doing this? And coming to some conclusions there.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned competition, and as you know, these things are about achieving an outcome. And then what happens? Your goal is to enter this contest or to achieve this body weight or whatever it is. Then what happens? What's going to motivate you then? It's all about the behaviours, and those behaviours can be boring or painful or tiring, and why would you want to do them, and how can you make it fun? And then why? And that, for me, that leads into, why is it important to you? What's it about? And when you tap into those greater reasons and you really understand what's behind it, that's when you can feel truly happy and intrinsically motivated. You know, you're not relying on the next contest or the next race or whatever. You just feel good inside and you say, yes, I want to do this because it's important to me, because it's going to give me this, this and this. You know, I think we're probably on the same page with that, Nick.
Yeah, yeah. Digging in and getting those the real why, or the real reasons, or the real core motivating factors for why we're doing what we're doing. And I think it can be so important because, as you say, you can reach a point where you've been working so hard and you finally reached a goal, and then your brain comes back and goes, "Man, is this all there is?" And you're like, you know, and there's that point of, you know, there's that point of victory where, you know, they get the placing, or they've just finally made it to the stage, or they finally, you know, run the marathon or whatever they've done, and then, you know, there's a certain period where they're feeling happy about it, but then eventually the happiness subsides, and then their brain goes, "What now? What next? Like, I've got no more goals left," or unless they've set some other goals. So that idea of, you know, the initial reaching of the goal may have been tough work, may have been a real slug, may have been completely opposite of what you think you would want to do for the rest of your life. And what's interesting is when I ask these girls after they finish their show, I ask them, I say, can you see yourself doing this for the next 10 years? Can you see yourself living this way and living this way in the next 10 years? And a lot of them say no. So then it comes back to, well, how many trophies do you need to win in order to feel good, if that's the reason why you were doing it? And of course, you know, there's always underlying reasons behind that. So I totally get what you're saying with the actions that we're taking, whether it be with the eating or the exercise or the way we're thinking about that, and the approach to the goal can be so important in setting us up for long-term health and happiness, and having those two together that are really working for us rather than having our results work against us. In the example that you gave, with once you've achieved the outcome, what next? What now? You know, what am I doing this for? So that's some interesting stuff. So you decided that it was finally it was finally time to make time for yourself, and you'd started teaching classes, and then you're getting into the why behind why you were teaching classes. And what happened next after that? Because I kind of want to get to the point where you shared that you had some fears, and I'm not sure if this was before you relocated or after, but you had self-talk like, oh, could I do this, or am I good enough, or do I need to do this, or do I need to be perfect, or whatever. So at what point were you having that type of self-talk?
Well, I think it was when I got here, and I think the big epiphany for me was, if anything happened to me tomorrow, it would be my choice, and nobody else would be sleepless about it. It's absolutely all up to me, and I'm choosing the way I want to live my life and the quality of it by the things I say and do and think. So why would I choose to be unhappy? Why would I choose to not do things because they're hard? You know, I kind of reached that point, and that was the real epiphany for me, is that it is all up to me, and it is all my choice, and I can choose what I want. It's so liberating.
Oh yeah. So how did you reach that point of choosing that it was all your choice? Like, you'd moved, was there a defining moment where you were like, you know what, I can no longer just accept that this is the way it is because of X, Y, Z? Like, how did you reach that point where you're like, well, if it's my choice whether I feel happier, it's my choice?
You know, it's kind of a bit fuzzy as to the exact time and place that happened, but somebody said something very hurtful to me, and I felt judged and criticised and not good enough, which is the place that I came from. And I think then I realised that, you know, I can choose to be affected by that person's words and criticism, or I can choose to find out what I'm about and what I want and need and to meet those needs. Because if I can meet those needs, then anything else doesn't matter. I can be the best person I can be, and I won't be hurt by other people's words. So I actually think that was the triggers, is someone saying something unkind to me and me thinking, well, I have a choice of how I respond, and then, well, I actually have a choice about a lot of things in my life. So that was my trigger.
That's powerful. That's so powerful. And I think I always love the expression. I always have a good chuckle at it, sometimes on the inside, when people say, oh, she said that to me and she just makes me so mad, or he said that to me and he just makes me so mad. And I have a chuckle because I'm like, specifically did that person cause you to feel bad? So,
yeah, it was absolutely my choice to feel bad. It was not that person's. I can choose to be unaffected by that person. Not. Yeah.
Yeah. So then it becomes a question of, how did Mel choose to be affected by those person's words? So how did you choose to be affected by those words? And then the answer comes up, boom, right there. So.
Yeah, exactly. And it was amazing how clear it became. I just thought, I'm going to put my Teflon suit on because I choose not to be affected. I choose to feel good, and I choose for that person to be happy or miserable or whatever they want to be, but it's none of my business what they think.
Exactly. What people think of me is none of my business. That's really useful. I think a lot of people could find that idea really useful, especially what you're referring to there with it's your choice to feel whatever way you want to feel, and it's your choice to choose whether you let what other people say to you affect you or not.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. And what I just, I guess, on that subject, because I think this is a really important subject, because a lot of people today, I think it can be, I mean, I know for me personally, I remember, I share this in the program, but I remember my mother telling me, go into the kitchen and clean the dishes. And I'll be like, oh, okay. And I go, and this is me as a teenage boy. I go and I clean the dishes, I'd, chuck them on the drawing board, and then I'd go back onto the couch and watch TV. And my mother would come out 5 minutes later and holding a plate, and she'd say, what is this? And she'd be pointing to the food on the plate, and I'd be like, oh, the scrubbing brush it was broken, or oh, there wasn't enough like soapy water, or I'd have every excuse under the sun. And my of course, to my mother's delight, always excuse. And this followed through into the rest of my life. So as I left school, and as I got into the working life, I'd blame my boss for not paying me enough so that I couldn't pay my bills, or I'd blame, or I'd say, oh, I needed more training. That's why I didn't perform to the standard that you want me to perform at. If my boss was drilling me on not performing to a certain standard, or if my health was out of shape, or if people didn't treat me the way I wanted to be treated, then I'd say, oh, well, that is, it's all their fault, and whatever they did was wrong. And I was kind of always placing I was also placing the blame outside of myself, and I was always placing I'd say I was living at effect, because I was living at effect of what others said to me. I was living at effect of what was happening to me in my life. I was living at effect of the results I was getting in my life, instead of saying, well, if I want new results in my life, then I need to take charge. Then I need to decide that the only way I'm going to get the results I want in my life is by deciding to cause those results to happen. So, but that happened years later, where I decided to live at cause, where I was actually causing the things that were happening to me in my life to be created, even the things that I didn't want. That doesn't mean that every single miserable, nasty thing that happened in my life was my creation. But if I was to take responsibility for everything that happened in my life, then I also empower myself to take responsibility for the change that needs to occur in my life. So if I'm not happy with the way things are, the only person who can change it was me. So So I really like how you had that progression where, where you had that person say something to you, and then you decided that the only way things were going to change for you was if you decided that the change, that you were going to make that change happen, and that the only way that things were going to affect you of what other people said was that if you were going to let them affect you. So that's most excellent, and that's a good example of how you've really made a life for yourself, and more than that, and you've designed the life that you want in the way that you want as a result of the decisions that you made back then, the decisions and the choices that you made about people, about yourself, about what you wanted to achieve. And so I think that a lot of people, they get stuck. They get stuck in this place of, I really want to get started and transform my health, or I really want to start that new exercise program. I really want to start that new, eating strategy or that new lifestyle plan, but this got in the way, and the kids got in the way, or my family, my husband got in the way. He didn't approve of this, or or for whatever reason. What would you have to share with people about people who are stuck? Because I'm sure that you've been stuck. I'm sure that, and from what you've shared already, there's been points where you were stuck in the past. Even if you had to go back to when in the biology days, or what would you have to say to people who are kind of stuck in that point at the moment, and they're struggling to get themselves unstuck?
Sure. Well, the first thing is that focusing on what's not working is going to keep you in that negative cul-de-sac. And I think what's really important is there's actual science in positive psychology showing that a focus on the positive really lights up your brain and allows you to be open and receptive to new ideas. So, if you're going over and over the same old script in your head, it's like reading a book. You're not going to keep reading chapter 12, right? You want to move to chapter 13. So I think it's a matter of saying, what can I do? What is working right now? What can I do more of? And most importantly, what do I want and why do I want it? And I think if you have somebody to share that dialogue with, it can make such a huge difference to getting started with some small achievable steps to create some confidence and some wins, and someone to hold your hand along the way. I think they're the critical things to get started.
Focus on the positive, and ask yourself some good quality questions. What can I do? What do I want? Why do I want it? And I guess by asking questions, you're gonna as a result of that, you're gonna be taking responsibility for what's going on in your life, for what's going on with your exercise, with your health, with your fitness, with your eating, all these things.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as you start cheering for yourself instead of beating yourself up, then a whole bunch of other things can change. They can change if you're willing to take a step and to take some responsibility for the things you can affect in your life.
So there was a time when you certainly took responsibility, and so would you suggest, would that be what you suggest, to help people to start taking responsibility in their lives by focusing on the positive and asking good quality questions like, what can I do, what do I want, and why do I want it? Or would there be anything else that you would add to help people to start taking responsibility in their lives? Looks like we've had a mute for a while, so I'll just check in and make sure that Mel's still there. Are you still with us? Okay, so while Mel's internet is turning on or off, So there's some really,
How's that?
looks like you're back. Yep, we got you back.
Sorry, something happened there. I was just saying that knowing why you want something and tapping into your values is really important, because that helps to keep you motivated to make change and inspired to make change. And I always say to people, what is it that you love to do and you could do till you're 100 years old? They're going to be the most sustainable, enjoyable habits.
They're really aligning your values with your goals, with the new changes that you need to make, can really help people to take responsibility and to do the things they need to do to get those results.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure that's the type of work you do too, Nick, is, asking the why question a few times is, what's underneath all of this? Why is it important? How will it make you feel when you achieve it? Can you visualize that? That's really powerful stuff.
Absolutely. So tell me about your lifestyle now. Like, what can people look forward to as a result of taking all this action? I mean, you're enjoying your life. You surf in the AM. You turn your technology off in the weekends, and you enjoy growing your own vegetables and going out for coffee with friends, and you exercise and eat well, and you love cooking. Tell us a bit more about that. Tell us a bit more about what you're doing there that you enjoy.
Well, I think some things that are different in my life now is that I have more energy because I'm not having to prop myself up with caffeine or sugar. I'm not driving myself too hard. People respect me more because I'm setting clear, firm, friendly boundaries around my personal life and separating myself from work and personal. I feel calm. I don't feel anxious anymore. I feel like I can solve problems. I feel healthy. I feel vital. I respect the food that I eat, and I eat slowly, and I have gratitude and awe for what I have available. I feel abundant. I feel happy. I feel fulfilled. And I feel in control of my life. I think that pretty much sums it up.
That's fantastic. And so, where can people go to find more about you, to connect with you, if they want to follow up from this interview and get more information in any way with any of your programs or your coaching or anything like that? Where can people reach you, Mel?
Probably the easiest way is by email, and my email address is melanie@healthkick.net.au. And I'm happy to chat to people about what they might like to change and how.
Melanie@healthkick.com.au.
It's .net.au actually.
Melanie@healthkick.net.au.
That's the
Great.
one.
Fantastic. And do you have a website as
Thanks,
well
Nick.
that people can go?
Yeah, it's www.healthkick.net.au.
That's really easy. Health kick. You can just think of kicking your health off, giving it a kickstart. Healthkick.net.au.
Exactly.
Great. Fantastic.
That's the one. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, no worries. No worries at all. That's great. So you've had a really awesome journey. I'm sure you've inspired a lot of our members who have listened to this interview, to this call, and you've really shared some key steps in there that people can take as well. I mean, you transform your life for being in a corporate working environment in the biology industry with biology, and you uplifted your life to a place of unknowns, and you got over your fears, you faced your fears, and you decided that it was a choice, that really your results are going to come down to a choice, whether you let what other people say affect you, a choice whether you decide to move your body, a choice whether you decide to look after your health, a choice whether you design your life the way that you really want it, even if it's going to take, several years or so to do that. It all comes down to a choice. And you're a great example of taking action on your health, of choosing to put yourself first and to create the sort of life that you want. And a few years later, you're living the type of lifestyle that you want to live, and you're helping people in the way that you want to help them, and you're making a difference. So that's fantastic. And I won't forget that some of the key messages that you shared as well with getting out of a rut was to really focus on the positive and to ask yourself key questions. One thing I always like to say is the quality of our lives is based upon the quality of the questions we ask ourselves and others. The quality of our lives is based upon the quality of questions we ask ourselves and others. So if we ask good quality questions, we get a good quality life. If we ask lousy, poor quality questions, we get a pretty lousy, poor quality life. So, you're a great example of asking good questions. What can I do? What do I want? And why do I want it? So, thanks so much, Mel. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up the call, or is that good for you?
No, I think that's good for me. Thanks, Nick. But maybe one last question that people can ask themselves is, what will I allow myself? I think that's a really good one too.
What will I allow myself? Ooh, good one. So what will you allow yourself? That's a good question to ask. So thanks so much, Mel. I'm just going to hit the off record button now. And you guys make sure that you're checking out Mel at Melanie at healthkick.net.au or www.healthkick.net.au for more information and to get in touch with her. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.